right, gorgeous souls. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Maybe Mindful podcast. Here we are in January. I don't know if you guys are having an experience anything like mine, but I really feel that we have stepped over the threshold of this year into this really open, expansive state and space for new and fresh possibility. I don't always feel that as definitively and really energetically, tangibly, if you will, as I do this year. Actually, I don't know if I've ever felt it in the same regard as I have this year. So that's actually kind of exciting. And I wanted to talk about some thoughts that came up for me. I feel as though we are stepping into this new expansive space, and we've really stepped over the threshold of bridging this gap from this place of intensity and work into being open to opportunity and the payoff and the fruitfulness of our labors. I think it's a good time to look up and look ahead, because sometimes we can be furiously working and have our head down and we're not seeing what's happening and what's unfolding in front of us. And so I feel really excited for each and every one of you. And I feel really excited for myself also, which is part of what's generating this excitement for you, because I know I'm not in this alone. And anything that ever tells us we're in anything alone is a lie from the pit of hell. Just take that little nugget with you and remember it. If you ever feel that, also similarly to that, the sister to that thought is like, you're a piece of shit, or any sort of discouraging self-talk or narrative, also lies from the pits of hell. So those can be simply observed and brushed aside as we step into new possibility. So here's what I wanted to do. I wanted to discuss a little bit with you what came up for me around Christmas, because it really presented and prompted some deeper connections, awarenesses, and thoughts around the new year and how we move forward. So I want to talk about how we move forward successfully in our goals, in our dreams, in our visions for ourselves in a sustainable way, and how we can really set ourselves up through a daily consistent practice, something actually small daily, because consistency is the key, and how that can really set us up for big, massive shifts and amazing change and really amazing progress. So backtrack. Christmas Day, I didn't make a Christmas post on my Maybe Mindful account. And I was like, I didn't want to just make some generic post and be like, Merry Christmas. So I didn't really think about it anymore. I just sort of left the space open. I set the intention of just I didn't even intentionally set the intention. I just set the intention of leaving the space open. And I find when I do that, it does create space automatically for something to drop in. So here's what happened. Christmas morning, I woke up. I did the unthinkable. I don't do this as a rule. I broke my own rule. I opened Instagram straight away. As for me, part of my practice is I wake up, I get my journal, I get my computer, I boil my water so I can have my coffee out of my French press. I sit down and I have a morning ritual with myself and with God, and I have a beautiful, usually writing adventure, and I reconnect with myself, and I get centered, I get grounded, I get filled up so I can start from a place of being full in my day. And this is something that I have been consistently doing for years now, and it has been the thing that has radically accelerated and transformed growth and result and change in my life consistently, and continues to do that. Anyway, somehow I just in my half asleep state, I opened Instagram. I saw a post that actually was triggering for me. It was a birthing account that I follow. I'm a hypnobirther. The reason why the post bothered me is because it was a pretty ignorant comment made actually regarding the birth of the Blessed Mother and what her experience would have been like. And it was just sort of a side note, but it really triggered me, because I was like, this is just not true. And I started thinking about it, and actually it sort of led me into my meditation, and it got me really, really contemplating this and being present with this idea that the Blessed Mother, and this was not like, I even made a post on Instagram about it. It was not meant to be a religious post. What I did was I actually discussed it from multiple aspects. I wove biblical concepts in because I'm not somebody that wants to beat you over the head with scripture unsolicited, because I find that can be a little abusive, and I generally reserve that for people where people are open to that and love that conversation. But I do get inspired with that stuff, of course, and it will spring up from my subconscious sometimes of something I read when I was little, and I'm like, oh wow, where is that? Where do I find that? That's such a gem. And how it applies to my life now. So anyways, I wove some of those concepts in. I talked about it from a spiritual mystical perspective, which is the most profound one to me. And then I spoke about it from a physiological aspect, and one that not, like a lot of people aren't even aware of. And so I said, if you don't agree or align with one, you might with the other. But as the thought process unfolded in my mind, it was okay, here we have the Blessed Mother. Okay, she has been chosen to carry the light of the world. By the way, the comment that I didn't like was actually discarding what Mary's experience most likely was and saying, oh, who knows, like if she had a hard birth or not. It was also a very graphic shot of a vaginal delivery, which felt very disrespectful because she chose modesty. And a lot of people actually were really offended by it. And it was pretty abrasive. And I'm not somebody that believes in censoring birth, especially, like it's all beautiful, but just the tone was a little off and disrespectful, in my opinion. So without digressing too much, I started to think about the fact that birth physiologically is a natural, normal event. I've talked about it in other episodes, and it is possible to have a comfortable and painless birth. Not everybody has painless births, but it's possible based on the fear, tension, pain cycle and the understanding of that concept. And that's the basis of what hypnobirthing was really founded on, is that when the body is free of fear, when the mind is free of fear, the body can be free of tension. When the body is free of tension, we can step out of the way and allow the process to naturally and seamlessly and efficiently unfold. And so the fear is in fact what creates the tension, and the tension is in fact what creates the pain, right? And so yes, there's a good amount of trust involved in the process, which is why in hypnobirthing you learn and you come to understand, you basically recondition your thinking, what we've been taught to believe or think about birth, and you start to see it differently, and therefore you become open to a new experience. And this is why mothers around the globe, including myself, have had really beautiful and sometimes painless and elative, peaceful, calm births that we have deep gratitude for. These have been some of the most life-changing, faith-building, pivotal moments of my life that have allowed me to really deepen my understanding on so many things, spiritual and power of our mind and everything else. So the spiritual veil is particularly thin at the time of birth. So here we have the Blessed Mother who's been chosen to carry the light of the world, right? And she has a direct line. So not only, we all have the ability to embody that light, to connect deeply within, to true self essence, to higher power within. She's literally carrying the word made flesh. So she is physically embodying it, not just on a spiritual level, but like physically, right? So I thought that, wow, that's really interesting. No doubt she's got a direct line there. And I would say she would have been in complete, not compliance, surrender and trust, right? And that has been revealed historically, that in fact, that was the case. And so I thought it was really fascinating, because that is how somebody has a more comfortable, fearless birth, is by moving into trust and surrender of that process. And so I started thinking about, wow, this is somebody who was chosen and had been given certain gifts, who did not have certain challenges that she has to face and obstacles that she had to overcome, just as we are all individually gifted according to our own unique divine purpose and calling. And that was her calling. I mean, she was to be the ark of the new covenant, right? The word. And so of course she was gifted. Of course she was predisposed, right? Just like we all, I believe, have certain gifts, these gems of these dreams and our heart's desires that are put on our hearts, they're usually there from the beginning. And I believe that we actually make some sort of an agreement with our Creator on a soul level, either before we come in, as we come in, I don't know exactly, but that's been my experience and the understanding that I have developed personally. And I know that when I have cultivated these gifts within and I have come to understand them, to be able to channel them properly, then I'm able to access them and I'm able to manifest accordingly and be creative and produce accordingly. And so, these are the things that are driving us to do and be the things that we want in this life. And, one of the biggest complaints of people when they're dying, one of the biggest regrets is that they did not accomplish potential. They did not overcome the fear to do the things that were on their heart, right? And that kind of leads me to my point around, we have these goals, we have these aspirations, and then we set these a lot of times really superficial New Year's resolutions, which is why they fail, because we haven't gone deeper with them. And the reason why they're superficial is because we're not getting to the core of what we really want a lot of times. So people say, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds. Well, that's great. Like if you have to lose 10 pounds, then by all means, lose it, be the healthiest version of yourself. But what are you actually wanting under that? Because losing 10 pounds doesn't actually make anybody happy. That's not actually the end result that people want. That's the illusion that they think is going to give them what they want. But you get there and then the finish line gets invariably moved. And either you have too much loose skin, you really want to lose more. Now you have to buy clothes because your clothes don't fit. I don't know, whatever. So really, I was thinking about it, and it's like based on who we are individually, what we have been gifted with uniquely, and what our desires are, and then what we think is possible, and how do we accomplish those things, and how do we set ourselves up. And obviously, in order to do and achieve and conquer and overcome ourselves, or to obtain our goals, there's a good amount of sacrifice involved, right? So there's a series of questions you can ask yourself, and get ready because I'm about to announce a workshop around this for really workshopping and getting clear in how to manifest these things in your life and overcome these so-called obstacles that are really just inside of our own minds. So when you figure out what it is you're wanting over here, right? Your desire, your goal, your dream, then it's like we have to work backwards and go, okay, let's go all the way down to the foundation and look at what's missing in this foundation. Because if things aren't in place and our foundation is not solid and stable, then we're going to have problems building up, and we're going to have problems with sustainability and quality and everything else that's going to happen. And the storms that are going to come along are going to shake our structure that we're building if it's not solid. And so for me, going back to something that I do every day that helps me cultivate connection within myself to stay anchored and centered to my core and my foundation, for example, is this writing morning practice that I do. There is meditation, prayer, self-hypnosis, spiritual reading, writing, like some combination, one or all of those things is involved. And I'm able to, as a result of that, get more clear. This opens me up to being able to be receptive to intuition, to creative ideas. It regulates and calms my nervous system, because if that's not calmed, regulated, and I'm not centered and grounded, then I'm going out dispersed and I'm not going to get that much done. I personally have to work with what I got, which is a pretty highly neurodivergent mind. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining about that. I actually have an immense amount of gratitude for that, because it allows me to have so many creative ideas sparked. However, I have to understand the guardrails for myself and what I need to do to self-care around that. Otherwise, I am like seizing on the ground because I'm so dysregulated and frozen and incapacitated by how overwhelmed I am by the amount of ideas and creativity that can come in at any given time. So for me, getting grounded, getting centered, and building in a small practice. This seems like a small thing, but it's actually the thing that's been responsible for everything else, because that is what brings me back to my center and to my foundation. It helps me connect with God within. And that to me is everything, because I believe that everything I'm doing, I'm co-creating. And if I'm not co-creating, well, what am I doing? Like, if I'm not creating, I'm usually in some sort of digressive state. I'm dysregulated, I'm disempowered, I'm discouraged, and I'm buying into some kind of narrative that's just not true. And so the things at the core are things like doing the things that are going to support me in my journey. So starting there and building up. And then I get strong. And as I go and as I build, I can stay strong. And addressing the self-talk and the inner dialogue is so important. The other thing that's really, really important, and I've done episodes on boundaries and self-care, is just that. To be able to have boundaries for ourselves, to not be pouring our time and energy into distractions. And that's what we do usually. A distraction from focusing on the goal. It's like if you need to work out and you want to work out, but then suddenly you go and you start cleaning your entire house instead. Now, that's really great that you cleaned your house and you have a clean house, but you still haven't worked out. And so you've distracted yourself. And now that is, I would say, a healthy distraction, because there's a lot of unhealthy distractions too. And that's, where addiction can like weave its way in and fear is involved. And so, as we do this work and as we address ourselves and do these simple, small things and take these small but really pretty big steps for ourselves in caring for ourselves, having boundaries, being aware of what we say yes to, who we say yes to, what we give our worry to, we can have a boundary for ourselves around what we stress out about. Because if you're pouring your energy in your mind into something over there that isn't fixing it, because worry is generally wasted emotion, then how are you going to have any creative energy left? And because there's no results there with worrying, that if you want to change something, you actually put forth action. And so pay attention to your thoughts, pay attention to the way they're making you feel. And if they're making you feel bad, you can definitely question those thoughts. I highly suggest it. Question the validity and the origin of those thoughts and open the space up to a new thought, and that can be quite simply done by saying, okay, I have this thought about myself. It feels real. I've had it for as long as I can remember, but I'm open to believing that it might not be true. The moment that you make a decision to have an open mind with something is the moment that you allow for change to come in and for a new truth to become operative. And then you can speak to yourself differently. But as long as you're locked on to a belief, then the space is closed. The loving energy that is available for you, that wants what's best for you, that wants to hold you and support you in your journey forward, is so respectful. It is not forceful. When I was a little girl, my dad said something to me really profound. I think I was about 7, and I can see it as clear as day. And I don't remember the exact question that led to him saying this, but he was opening a gate and I was looking up at him and we were about to walk through the gate, and he said, "God is a gentleman." And it really, really stuck with me because he really respects my process, and love does not force anything. And sometimes people, and I've had this experience too, have the tendency to get really mad and blame God and that which they understand or perceive to be God. And they say, "Why aren't you doing this for me?" But it's because we're not open and receptive. The only thing that blocks us from receiving all the resources that we need is whether we're open or closed for it or not. And so the moment that we make a decision to become open to it, God, the universe, like it is all conspiring in our highest good, period. End of story. So you become open to it. You put a sign up that says open for business. the opportunities come. That's just what happens. And if you're afraid or if you're energetically closed off to it, generally those opportunities don't present, or if they do, they go away, I have found, if you're not ready. So that's something to think about. And then, of course, the other thing is to really ask yourself some questions and to say, okay, what is it that I want to be? What do I want to feel? Like, what is it that this goal that I'm wanting, how am I wanting this, the achievement of this over here? How do I want that to make me feel? And really just hold that and envision that. Because when you get in touch with that and you really embody that feeling, then you've already created it for yourself and you move forward from that place. Once you've embodied that feeling, you've already created it. And you already have what you want. Then you've elevated your frequency like big time, and you're on the same plane as the opportunities that you're wanting. So you've adjusted and you've like tuned your radio, you've tuned into the right channel, and then you can be receptive to that what you're wanting. So that's really the foundation of manifestation. Believing that I am not like the ultimate almighty creator in the world. I believe I am a co-creator. I personally like to check in for direction. I'm very open to seeking divine wisdom and guidance on these things, which I get through my daily practice that I do for myself every day. And I find that to be pretty critical, because otherwise I can be operating from a very egocentric, self-centered place where I think I want something and I might be forceful in trying to manipulate or make that happen. I've seen it and I've experienced it where the intention or the motive is not clear. If you do hit that target and it's not a clear, clean motive, it's not a pure motive, then it's not going to make you happy. It's not going to make you happy. Like, you have to get happy first. You have to get happy. It's kind of like if you want to be in a relationship and you're so fucking miserable and unhappy, but you really want to attract a relationship, like, who's going to want to be with you in that relationship if you're that unhappy? You have to get happy and solid and independent on your own. And then you're going to draw to yourself that person that's like really attracted to that quality in you. And then you're going to have what you want. You know what I mean? And so it's sort of a backwards thing. You know, we can't be moving from a place of lack and unhappiness, because we're operating from a belief already that we're not enough, that we're unworthy. And that doesn't work. And that's why people don't succeed, I believe. And I see that in my own past experience and what has held me up. It's simply my own limitation and belief that's been the problem. And the moment that we shift and change that, of course, we become open and receptive to a totally new experience. So we do have power in how things unfold. We can step into agency with this. It's an incredible thing. And to shift belief is really the thing at the foundation, the core of it. And so how do you do that? What do you do there? And what can you cultivate and put into practice? The things that are going to support you. And like I was saying, moving forward through the difficult actions, there's sacrifice required. There's discomfort you're going to have to move through. If you want to do something new, you're going to have to move into new territory to do something that you've never done before, most likely. And that is hella uncomfortable. That's enough to make people run for the hills and never come back, because it's an energy that they perceive as something's wrong, but actually it's not. It's just growth. That's all. And that has been a really marvelous discovery for me on my own journey that one of my mentors helped me with, because it allowed me to soften in the face of those experiences and go, okay, this is an opportunity. That's all it is. And this is a gift. This discomfort is a gift, because I get to learn, I get to be a student. And if I'm not a student in all of this, then, you know, my humility's out the window and I'm not teachable. And I want to keep learning and I want to keep growing. And the cool thing about us humans is that we have endless capacity for growth and learning, growth on all levels, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and to become more expansive. And for me, I'm just going to tell you that the thing that has been the most profound in the spiritual journey is understanding that my soul, my spirit, my life energy is so much more expansive than my body. And when I tap into that, I can really cast a wider net for possibility and opportunity. And so real quick, I've done that through a self-hypnosis practice and all the other ways that I develop and grow a spiritual practice and a prayer meditation. It's all become really integral, and there's a lot of crossover with all of those different modalities, if you will, right? And like showing up for ourselves in that way. And as far as how we show up for ourselves in that way, and if there are blocks there for you, that's just something to go, okay, this is information presenting. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that have said, I don't know how to meditate and I don't know how to pray. And therefore they don't do it because they don't think they're doing it right. And the only way to do it wrong, I'm just going to offer this, is to not do it. So when we show up in a prayerful practice and a meditative practice, we show up and we meet ourselves exactly as we are. We bring whatever we have, and whatever we have is acceptable. And that's the only place to move forward from. We can only move forward from a place of honesty, and that is perfectly acceptable, adequate, and good enough. When I've talked to people about this and they've had that shift and that realization and that reframe, it's all of a sudden become accessible to them. And so the only thing that was stopping them from doing it was the belief that they were limited or that they were doing something wrong. And that is not a belief that originated in us. That is an old conditioned idea that we picked up somewhere along the way. So it's absolutely possible to move into and past those limitations and ideas so that ultimately we can have, be, embody, and do the things that we came here to do in this life. And that is what leads to ultimate soul fulfillment. And that's what makes us happy, because when we're being who we are, we're happy because we're naturally happy. Happiness is a state that is at the core underneath all the other shit that we throw on top of it, you know? So I hope this was helpful. Stay tuned for my workshop announcement. Bless you guys in the new year as we all move forward in this together. And I'm with you on the path. Until next time.